Hi everyone, my name's Steve Jones and welcome to the next stage of my kit bash of ARC Models SIG 33 BISON. Today we're going to have a look at the tracks. These are the tracks that are supplied by the kit, just your bog standard individual link. Glue them together, bend them around the wheels and hopefully they'll stick on. My experience of these isn't very good, so whenever I get a kit with tracks like this I do replace them. So we're going to have a look at metal tracks by Full, the ATL 20 for the Opel Mortier. These are the actual links that correspond with the Panzer 1 tracks that are required. In the kit you get all of your links, you get some of the wire to put the links together. So let's just have a little run through with what we have in the kit. These are the actual links themselves, nicely detailed. I'll just pick one up. There we go. I don't know how well you can see that, probably not too well, but a lot better detailed than the kit offering. Just a matter of sanding them down, because they all have seam lines, using the old sandy stick. And with a 4mm tungsten tip drill, it's just a matter of drilling out the holes so that the wire can fit in. Now I use, I don't know, I think they're what you tongue depressors, I suppose you call them, from the hospital, and just add some double-sided sticky tape onto them, and then as and when you're ready with each cleaned link, just stick them on. As you can see with the L at the end, these are the left hand side tracks, all nicely cleaned up, and then just ready to put some wire in them to connect them all up. So what we'll do, we'll get some snips, surgical snips that I use, very sharp, very handy to use, and what we'll do is just we'll measure out a little bit of the link, the wire to the actual length of the link, just leaving a little bit extra over, and we'll get a length snipped off, and then it's just a matter of snipping a group of lengths so that we can add them to the actual links themselves to combine them together. So now we need to place the wire within the track link itself, so it's on with the old Optivisor, and we'll start picking up some of these pieces. Hopefully you can see this okay, and there we go. So the first one goes in at the end, making sure it's pushed well down. There we go, you can see that now in there. Now obviously I would spend some time and do the whole lot, but for the sake of the video we'll do one at a time. So out with the Pringles lid, some super glue, cocktail stick, and all it is a matter of loading up the cocktail stick and placing some of the glue at the very end of the wire and letting it just trickle down inside of the link itself. And then all you have to do is just leave that to dry, and then we can come back to it once finished and cut all the ends off. With the glue dried, it's now time to remove the links from the tape. As you can see, some of the wires were cut too short, but waste not, want not. I still use them, and I'll show you a way of being able to cover that up in just a second. So let's take them off the tape. There we go. So what we now need to do is to get ourselves our snips, and we'll cut the lengths of wire down to size. Now what you don't want to do is to snip the wire all the way right flush with the link. You want to try and leave it a couple of mil above the link, and I'll show you why. There we go. So with the wires that were cut too short at the beginning, what we'll do is that we'll create our own track pin ends. What we'll do, we'll make some rivets using the RP Tools rivet maker. With the rivets choices, I'll be going for, we'll go for the 0.8 size, and we'll use some pewter strip to make the rivets with. So we'll just put that in to the rivet maker. Using the rivet and the hammer. Simple as that. And we'll take out the rivet itself and we'll place that on there. And then it's just a simple matter of getting some glue. So with the glue on, we'll just moisten the end of the tweezers, pick up the rivet and place it on top of the glue. There we go. So with all the wires cut down, we now get ourselves a metal file, and we can now start to file that 1 or 2 mil that you've left all the way down towards the link. So there we have it, one length of track all cleaned up, with the pin ends done and ready to be used later on in the build. Next we're going to carry on detailing the hull. As you can see there, been using the Voyager PE kit. A lot of scratch building as described in the photographs earlier, and you see all the internal works as well. And what we're going to do now is to crack on and do the holders for the wicker baskets. I've had to nick these from a Dragon kit because there was none in the Ark Models kit at all, and here's the PE kit that we've been using from Voyager. There we go, very nice kit. There's a couple of little issues I've had with it, but nothing to worry about at all. And as you can see from the instructions down in the corner there, we're going to do section T, where we're going to create some brackets. So first of all, here we have part C. Very simple, just a matter of getting the optivisor on, and we'll cut some of these bands off. So using the tweezers, you can see that there. Those will bend around the actual wicker holders themselves, and then we'll create the base. Which is here. Now I don't usually have any issue with leftover sprue connectors on the PE, because I like to cut with a very sharp knife at a 45 inward degree angle, and that seems to nullify the need. However, if you do get any sprue, just sand them off either with a metal file or a sanding stick. There's no real issues there. And then lastly, we need to take off the support. Some internal connectors on the PE which I wasn't aware of, so we've taken care of those, and there we go, there's the next piece. Now this is the piece that's going to hold the actual wicker basket, so it's going to be needed to bend first. So rather than actually use your tweezers to bend it, I have a stiff metal rod here in amongst my things. I mean, you could always use a pencil or the end of a paintbrush, and we'll just gently bend it around. Here it is, this thing here. So we'll position the flat part, checking on the instructions which part needs to be bent up. and then it's just a matter of bending that around the metal part, as you can see there. Keeping it firm. And there it is, all nicely curved, ready for the basket. Next we need to put the base into shape. I have PE bending tools, such as the likes of this, but quite frankly this is really for intricate stuff. Basic items like this, it's just a matter of getting the short nose pliers, and we'll bend these all into position. As you can see, all very straightforward. And then that curved part that we did earlier, we'll just bend that into place. And there we have it. The simple bracket. So all I've got to do is make up another one of those and add it to the base, and then we'll be able to put that all together. Now, as this is a Kitbash, it's a bit of guesswork where to put the holders. As you can see here, this is where I had to take off part of the kit part, because I've absolutely no idea why it was there, but it was certainly incorrect. But what it would be nice now is to cover that up with the bracket that's going to hold the wicker basket. So here we have the bottom part, nicely detailed and moulded. As that's going to be added onto the plastic, we'll turn it over, get a sandy stick, and just give the back of it a quick sand down, and this will ease the adhesion onto the plastic part. It's getting very tight here on this fender, so I'm going to squeeze this in as best as I possibly can. So in with the tweezers, out with the cocktail stick. We've got some liquid CA glue here, and we'll put that over that. There we go. And let's just add that over that sanded plastic part. With the wicker basket done on the side fender, this has brought up a few issues. Now, the first one being, I'm always thinking about being able to get the paintbrush in there for painting and weathering further down the line, and as far as I can see, it's going to be far too tight for me. So all of this is going to be left loose and can be taken off accordingly, and unfortunately these will all have to be painted individually and put on at the end of the build. Now, Voyager only supply 3 lots of straps because they only expected me to put 3 baskets on. Now, as you can see, I have one underneath. So if we take the gun carriage itself, which I'm still in the process of detailing up, and we add it to the top, fortunately the wicker basket underneath is jammed in tight there, so looking at reference photos, there's no real need to add straps onto the side there, so that's fine. Okay, next we turn our attention to the front shield. This is the kit part. As with most of this, poorly detailed, far too thick. And the other thing I have no idea how they expect it to fit on, because it just doesn't. So we're going to have to scratch build a new one. So to do that, we'll be using plastic card, and this is 0.5mm thickness. Scale wise is a little bit thicker than what it should be, but the 0.25 would be far too flimsy. I mean, this is flimsy enough as it is. So first thing we're going to do is to cut out the two side sections mirroring the image of the kit parts. Now it's all very straightforward, just a simple matter of measuring out. I have a model maker's scale rule here, and what we'll do, we'll just take the measurements of the sides and the height, etc., and then we'll just transfer that over to the sheet. I won't bore you with that, so I'll sure crack on and get that done. So there we go, we have a basic shape that we can work with. I'll try and put this up to the original kit part. I don't know how well you can see that, but there is quite a difference in thickness, so it was the right thing to do to make my own one. However, we'll carry on using the template, because as you can see there are curved edges all the way around the top, so it's just a matter of lining it up with the original, getting a sanding stick, and then we can just sand it back to create that curvature. Now the side shield has a hinged flap, which the Germans are able to pull away from the tank to give them extra room to get inside. So I don't personally want to have them open, but I'll make that decision near the end of the build. So what we're going to do is we're going to score the lines. I've measured out the points on the card, and we'll score it on the one side first. And then we'll turn over and score on the other side as well. So now we can bend it if we need to. Okay. Now the next thing I want to replicate is the hubcap housings. As you can see, the lumpy bit on the side there, when placed on the side of the carriage, as you can see, it's hollowed out, and then that would cover so the hub of the axle can go into the side of the shield like so. Now I'm feeling rather lazy at the moment, so what I decided to do, even though they are slightly incorrect size, I've decided to take the easy route and just cut out the kit ones and stick them on to my shield. So in the true nature of Blue Peter, here's one that I've done already. Sanded all the back down as well, to try and make it as thin as possible. And then using the measurements, I've managed to position where I want the cover to go. So the next part now is to actually make a hole so that it's all hollowed out. So to do that, what I'm going to use is my eyelet maker, and we'll place that within the middle of where we want it to go. I think you can see that there, and there we go. So that's taken out, and there we have the hole. I'll make another couple of those, and then what we'll do, we'll stick on the cover like so, and then with that on, what we can do is then file and sand everything out from the other side. So there we go. The cover's stuck on the side of the shield now, and on the other side, as you can see, I've cut away the 3 holes. So what we now need to do is to get our craft knife, and what we'll do is that we'll tidy that all up so that it looks correct. So there we go. After a little bit of cutting with the craft knife and the sanding, we have it hollowed out. Doesn't have to be exact because no one's going to see it, but at least you got the space now to put the hub on the resin wheel into that gap. Now, one part of the shield I'd like to make into a little bit of a feature is the lookout window at the top here. On the kit, it's obviously a solid piece. If we turn it around, there's hinge mechanism, so you can actually have the window up by 90 degrees or if not higher. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to scratch build that, and we'll see where we go. First of all, I've measured out, as you can see at the top, where the hole should be. So what I'm going to do now is just scratch build and rivet the outside before I actually cut out the window within that border. Now for the edging, I'll use pre-cut strips. My favourite one is Slater's Plasticard. This is the assorted one. As you can see, you get a whole variety of thicknesses, widths, and makes life a whole lot easier. So I've already chosen the one that I'm going to use, so I shall make a border around the frame, and then we'll stick some rivets on, the handmade ones that I showed you earlier. So as you can see, I've finished the frame. Very straightforward. Unfortunately, I completely forgot to round off the edges before I added on, so that was a bit of a pain to do, but I shall remember for next time. Now I'm going to add on the rivets. The reason I want to show you this is because obviously people do it different ways. The way I like to do it is have my little Pringles tub with my drop of CA glue, and then what I do, I just get the cocktail stick with a dab of glue on top, make a small little mound of glue onto the actual piece that I'm going to be sticking it onto. Licking the end of the tweezers, I then pick up the rivet and put it onto the end. And there we are. I doubt if you'll be able to see that, so I will do a still. And then it's just a matter of spending the next half hour or so putting the rivets all the way around. Okay then, so all the rivets have been added to the frame of the window on the outside. I don't know if you can see that all okay. There we are. So, I've done a lot of research on the windows, and there's 4 different designs with various variations on the theme. One where they actually have brackets to put a radio on, and antennae, and one with the large leaves to actually pull the panel, the window, whatever you want to call it, downwards. So I've decided to go for the simple version, keep it nice and easy. So to start with, what I'm going to do is to cut out the central area, purely and simply because if I just detailed this area, it would look like you've just detailed the panel, whereas if I actually create an actual window panel itself, it will look more realistic. So we'll get that cut out, and then I can use that as a template to create an actual window panel that I'll attach from the inside. Okay, with the panel cut out, what we'll do, we'll put a little frame on the inside. Looking at the research photos, it was pretty shoddy workmanship, to be honest with you. They just seemed to stick a couple of bits of metal in, some hinges and a little latch on the door. So I've got some styrene strip from Evergreen, the channel. There's all your sizes there for you. So what I'll do, I shall just cut those down to size, so that the window can fit into the frame. I'll keep it a little bit away from the edge, so it will fit better. The handle, that will be simply done with a bit of wire, and I'll squeeze the ends with the old pliers to squash them down. Fed up to the back teeth of doing rivets, so we'll probably bolt the framework in. These are the Meng nuts, 0.8mm, so I'll use that for those. As far as the hinges go, I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this. Probably hear it all falling out of the box, but I have a large spares box of old PE photo etch that I've collected over the years. In fact, when I go to shows, I actually seek out sets for sort of £1 or £2 that sort of have hinges and brackets and that sort of thing in them, because they always come in handy. So I'll crack on and get that done, and then I can show you how it all went. So here we have the panel, made out of the same thickness of card as the actual shield itself. What we'll do, we use Tamiya thin. I pretty well much use this all the time for gluing plastic parts. I will actually use the heavier duty Tamiya, but only sort of like for putting hulls together and turrets and large panels. Mainly because once you put it on, it very quickly evaporates, so you don't get all the mess and clog like you do with the other glue. So I'll just put this around the edge, and then we'll carefully add that on. There we go, and now we'll create the frame to go around the window. So a simple frame has been made. As you can see, a little bit of detailing there with the hinges and the little latch. So what I'd like to show you now is how we go about making the handle. Bog standard 0.4mm copper wire, and we'll just snip a little piece off to use. And then we have the wire bending tool from RP Tools, very handy indeed for making handles. So with the handle in place, it just left me to stick a couple of rivets on the end, and as you can see, I've added all the Meng nuts as well. And with all things riveted, you have to have the corresponding rivets on the other side as well. So I just added a couple for the handle and 2 pairs at the bottom for the hinges, and that completes the first of the windows. Next comes the hinges for the panels. While everything was drying on the first panel, I made the other panel, and I started work on the hinges there. Again, had a look through the spares, couldn't really find the ones that I wanted. So these ones are a little bit smaller than what they should be, but they look the part. Hopefully you can see these. Just trying to get that in focus for you. It's a nice hinge. As you can see, you have the dimples, so where the dimples are, you have to add in the rivets. In this case, they're 0.5mm ones, and they have a nice little clasp that you just bend over to give the centre part of the hinge. So again, I'll do some stills on these, but hopefully you can just see them in focus. So with the hinges on, we now need to turn our attention to the other side of the shield and start doing some detailing there. Now obviously a lot of reference material I'm using, but for explanation here we can have a look at the instructions from the Voyager kit. As you can see here, we're going to be putting a panel in to give all the angles and distances for the artillery. We also have a bar here that has a couple of retainers that will stop the flaps from flapping around. We've also got a couple of poles here as well. So we're going to create this bead first that goes all the way around the outside of the flap using some styrene rods. Now I've made a start on the beading. I basically added some rivets around the side so I can get a gauge of the thickness of where the trim needs to go. Then it's just a matter of cutting a small length at the bottom there, which is currently being fixed with the pegs. And then what I do is fix the top with the peg, just using the standard thin Tamiya glue, this one here. And what we need to do is just to attach the trimming along the side of the flaps using the pegs. So let's just do that one here. I'll just slide that into place. There we go. And then when we're happy with the distance away, we'll add another peg on. And that keeps that all nicely in place. And all you need to do is just to get your thin cement and just run it along the channels and then leave it to dry. So while that's all in the background drying, we'll make a start on the cleaning rods. As you can see from the PE instructions, that's G. More detail with G. We need to use the rods which are A46. Now obviously, as this is a Voyager kit for a Dragon conversion, I don't have those, so I'm going to have to make some up. Using good old Slater's plasticard again, I have a variety of rods that I shall make some up with. As far as the PE goes, it's very straightforward bending. However, we do have a double clamp. I don't know about you, but I hate doing clamps with PE, so I shall do those off camera and see what we come up with. So first off, we need to gauge the thickness of the rod that we're going to use. I've cut off the little PE brackets. So getting the plastic cards themselves, the rods, we'll pick up the PE piece and then we'll have a look at which one will fit in the hole. A little bit on the large side. There we go, I think we got a winner there. As you can see, it's very awkward using PE. Yep, I'm happy with that one. Okay, so what we'll now need to do is to bend the brackets. You can either use your tweezers. I like to use my flat nose pliers. Very simply. And then just push it up. And now on the other side. Push it up again. And then finally the middle section. And we'll push that up. Or not, as the case may be, because the sides are getting in the way. So we've made a score mark, so that should push up quite easily now. There we go. Okay, so I've got one more of those to make. and then we'll measure up the rods to size now that we've worked out which one we want to use. So once the PE brackets and parts were bent into place, it was quite straightforward, just a matter of cutting a couple of rods to length, attaching those to the brackets at the bottom, and then the top bracket was attached to the panel first, and then everything was added on. Quite straightforward. So as you can see, the beading on the side flap is now fixed into place. So what we'll do now is have a go at making the retaining bar. So all the detailing on the inside has been complete now. As you can see, we have the panel from the Voyager kit, nicely detailed. As far as the retaining bracket goes, there are several variations on the theme, so I was quite happy with the way that's turned out. Now I'm going to need to add a good 100 to 150 rivets on the back and on the front. For me, that's what I would classify as one of life's chores. So what I shall try and do is every time I come to the bench, do sort of 10 to 20 and break it down, so hopefully by the time the complete build is done, all the rivet work would have been done as well. Using the RP Tools rivet maker, I've already made a start, and I've got I don't know, about 100 or so, 0.5 done using the pewter strip, which incidentally was what I used to make the brackets, which were embellished with the rivets as well. So as that is a chore, I want to move on and do something else instead. So now I'm going to turn my attention to the front shield. As I showed you earlier, it's complete foobar, doesn't fit at all. So I've got some scale drawings that I can work off of, and I'll be using the same 1/2 mil plastic card. So first of all, I shall draw out the shapes and we'll take it from there. Okay, so I've cut out a rough shape for the front shield. I don't know if you can quite see that, but I've drawn a line along the bottom, and that's where we'll mark our fold. So that's just a matter of getting the ruler over the mark, getting the end of some old tweezers and just scoring along there. And then that can be bent like so, and there, as you can see, we're now starting to get the angle that we need. Okay, so progressing with the front shield, all very straightforward, very simple shapes. As you can see here on the right hand side, there's a gap there for a plate, door plate, observation plate, whatever you want to call it, which I'll do later on. The gap along the bottom, I took 1/8 of a mil off each side, and that's worked rather well. As you can see, this now fits a lot better on the front. So now it's just a matter of adding the box onto the back, and then we'll start detailing. Okay, so I'm doing the bottom box now. Again, it's just simple shapes, making sure that we have an angle here for the visor when we put that on. But I don't know if you can quite see this, but just here I've had to angle it in because the actual box goes a little bit higher. So when you actually push the front shield back, it now fits in nice and snugly. This won't actually be glued until I actually do the size, but it's little bits of detail like this that you need to pay attention to. Next, it's time to look at the visors. I've cut a strip out that I'll put the visors onto, and we've got a bit of decision time now. As you can see from the original kit part, there is just the one visor port just there. If you look at a normal Panzer 1 Ausf, there is only one port. However, if you look at some of the BISON reference photos, they do actually have a small visor on this side as well. Now Dragon, the Dragon kit, they've included that detailing on that side as well. So I'd imagine it may well have been something that was done in the field, and probably not the same for every single Bison. I'm obviously now at a stage of this build where I want to crack on and get some paint on it, so I'm going to take the easy option and just go for the one visor. So I've done the visors. Really enjoyed doing this part of the scratch building. As you can see on the front side, added some rivets, and then on the inside just put some detailing around the kit part itself. There was a couple of extra little bits of detailing which I haven't included purely because I couldn't fit it all on, but you get the idea. And to be perfectly honest with you, most of it's going to be covered up anyway, so you'll struggle to see any of this. But yeah, went together really well. As far as the front shield goes, I've made myself a little door using the hinges. The actual door itself was cut out of separate sheets, so you can actually have a little bit of depth there, so you can see that it is actually a door. And then on the inside, I've added a little latch along with some trim just to neaten it all up. So really that's it now. It's just a matter of putting it all back together again, and then adding all those hundreds of rivets. I'd like to quickly show you some examples of mini scratchery and photo etch work. As you can see from the instructions here, we have B19, which is the front light. I was going to shave it all down and put the PE onto it, but the carpet monster got hold of it, so therefore I've got a good excuse to scratch build another one. So what I'm going to use is my eyelet maker, which is this piece of machinery here. We'll get ourselves a piece of 1mm thick plastic card. Take a small corner which has already been used. There we go. And we have one eyelet, as you can just see in there. So I'll just clean that off. Now Voyager give you two options, as you can see just by my thumb here, which is the early or later version. So we're going to go for the earlier version, and we're going to stick that on with some CA glue onto the small disc that we just made. I don't know if you can see that, but we put the PE part on, very straightforward. Voyager now provides a small bracket that we can add on to the back here, so let's just quickly take that off. Using the tweezers, it's just a simple matter of bending it at an angle so it can fit onto the side of the tank. And again, I don't know if you can't see that, but there's a small indentation there which will need a rivet, so I'll put one on and then I'll add it to the tank. So the light's finally done, added onto the front here. I'll add some stills on so that you can see it in better definition. But as you can see at the back there, we've added on a little conduit as well. Now what we also need to do in this particular area is fit on the hose. This is quite a poor piece. As you can see, there's a seam line going all the way through and it's not quite accurate either, so we're going to make another one of those. So I'll show you how that's done as well. So the aim here is to recreate the air intake hose. I've taken off the end which actually attaches to the hood, because that's not too bad. Happy to work with that. But as far as the actual recreating the hose goes, what I've done is used a hole punch and punched out some 2mm and 1.8mm discs. So it's just a matter of adding the large one and the small one together and gradually building up a section of hose. Okay, I've decided to take a break from the riveting for a little bit and turn my attention to putting some extras onto the rear of the gun carriage. The kit comes with these little boxes for the ammo to go in. Not the greatest of detail on them. I've added a little brass latch there and some ropes on each end using nylon thread. You probably can't see it, but I've added some grain in, basically just using a knife and scratching the surface. So in my world, I'm going to try and put that in there somewhere like that. And there's a photo of some sandbags on the back jamming in the ammo boxes. Now obviously the ones that I've got, as you can see, are far too big. I think these are Revel, but I found them in the spares box. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make some of my own, and the way to do it will be using milliputts. There's various ones that you can buy. I'm going to be using the yellow and grey ones here. So it's just like an epoxy. Just take a chunk off, as you can see, at the end of the box with this one. So don't want to take that much. So there we go. That's about the size of the sandbag we're going to use for guidance. And again the same there. So all it is then, it's just a matter of mashing it all up together. Now while you're combining and mixing the two parts together, it gets very sticky, so just add a little bit of talcum powder on there, and that'll prevent it from sticking to your fingers. So there we have the one that we want to work with as far as scale goes. I want mine to be a little bit smaller, so we'll just break it down a bit, and then really all it is a very simple case of putting it into I don't know what you call a pyramid type shape. There we go. There you go, and that can obviously be squashed up when it goes onto the back of the model. So we'll have two of those. So take out another lump. There we go. So what I want to do now is just check the size is okay on the back. As you can see, the box is in its place. That's all been glued in. So we have one there and one there. Yeah, I think that will look fine. Now the next thing we need to do is to add a little bit of detail to the actual sandbags themselves. So we'll take a bit more of the milliputt and we shall cover that. Let's just put the bags to one side and we'll cover that in some more talcum powder. And what we need to do is to roll this out. So what we're going to do, just going to roll out a little part of the milliput, making it nice and flat. Use a paintbrush or a pencil or anything that you may have on your bench. Just use it as a little roller. You don't have to be particularly tidy with this particular part. Then we get a ruler and a craft knife. And just cut some strips. Tidy that one up a little bit. And then all we need to do is just crumple this all up into one roll, like so. And then we'll add that onto the top of the sandbag like so. Then using some modelling tools, sculpting tools, whatever you want to call them, dip them in a bit of water and just go all the way around, cleaning it up. So with the top of the sandbag made, what we need to do is just add a little tie using nylon thread. You don't want to be using cotton because that will just fray. And what we'll do, we'll just tie that around the top, and that will be a nice little feature to paint up later. So there we go, that's all been tied off. What I just need to do is to get a little bit of CA glue and just add it to the ends to stop them fraying. So there we have a nice sandbag. It's really now just a matter of adding some detail to it. So again, using the sculpting tools with some water, we'll do a little seam line all the way around. There we go. And then just add in some little details with crease marks, etc. Now, as I'm sure you can work out already, this is covered in my fingerprints. So what you need to do is to put it onto the model where you want it positioned, like so. And then if you get a towel, cotton towel, old rag, whatever you've got to hand, which is obviously textured, and then just push it into place. And as you're pushing it into place, that adds texture to the sandbag and also gets rid of all those fingerprints. And there we are. Okay, I'll do some stills so you can see it closer up, but I shall crack on and do the second one now. Next we want to have a look at the rear springs on the mudguards fenders at the back. I've kept with the kit fenders. As you can see, there's a very small recess here, and what would actually go in there would be a spring. Now this is the kit part. Understandably not much quality, so we're going to make our own springs, which I'm sure you've all done yourselves. Fairly easy. Matter of just wrapping some wire, different thicknesses of wire down around different types of metal. In this case we have the metal airbrush needle, an old knackered one that I use. We have pins, also needles, and it's just a matter of a little bit of trial and error to find out which one suits the particular project you're doing. In this particular case I actually used 0.3 mil wire, and we wrapped that around the needle. Then what we did, we bent each end of the spring. Let's just get that out of the way. I don't know how well you can see that, but we bent each end of the spring, which then makes the little eyelets. I'll do a still at the end so that you can see it in better detail. And then it's really just a matter of making the fixings. So what I've used is some hollowed out 1 mil metal tubing, and within that I'll put some 0.5 mil tubing, solid length of metal rod, and that will create the fixing. And then just to keep it all in place, we'll probably stick a little rivet on top. Obviously very fiddly, so I'll do that off camera and show you the end result. Well, I'm happy to report that the front shield is now complete. It didn't go the way that I wanted to, but I'm happy with the final result. As far as all the rivets go, for those of you who are interested, there was 990-ish added on all together. For the purists amongst you, yes, they should have been a little bit smaller, and yes, there should have been a few more of them, but I'm more than happy with the result. Couple of issues. The underneath, very little information about how this should look underneath. Some have a bracket that runs the whole length. Some just have a little bracket here, obviously to attach to the top of the hull, and others don't have any bracket at all. And I've decided not to have any bracket because it's going to be a real pain to paint it up afterwards if I did add one on. The rivets on the back panel, these flaps here, a lot of reference material say that you shouldn't have it. Well, if you look at the black and white photos, they are clearly on the flaps, so I've added those on. Also on some models you'll see a rivet here, and that's because the lever arch style windows inside, which I haven't gone for. I've gone for nice basic ones, so that's why there isn't the rivet on there. So yeah, all in all, very happy with the result. It all fits nice and snugly onto the BISON, so I will look forward to getting that all painted up in due course. If you remember, I did a little blanket roll with some equipment that was going to go down into the lower hull, so that's obviously for one crew member. So I've decided to do some equipment for up top as well, all out of the spares box. I think off the top of my head they're the ICM, if I remember rightly, the Germany Infantry Weapons and Equipment set, which is a very nice set indeed. This is the Mauser All I've done here is simply use some pie tin foil. There we go, that's what I worked off of. Just cut strips off of that. The little straps all glued together, and the connectors made from 2mm wire. As far as the gas canisters go, for those of you who are in the know, you'll know that there's 2 little brackets that need to be added, and that holds the straps, and there's a little buckle on there as well. Strictly speaking, the water bottle should have a clasp on the back to fit onto the belt, but that will just stay as is. And then this helmet I'm going to have upside down. So what I did, I put the lining in. This is from Arbor. I don't know how well you can see that. There we go. German helmets and chin straps. And it's a nice little set. You get 8 altogether. As you can see, I've used some in the past. So yeah, very pleased with that. I'll do some stills so that you can see those close up. So, bar the shouting, we have now completed the ARC Models Kitbash. I tried to put the running gear together and the tracks on, but it's all so flimsy, and I don't really want to cover it in lots of blue tack just to show the final look. I tested out all the wheels, which I was glad I did, because the fixings on the ARC didn't fit the wheels of the TriStar, so those all had to be adjusted. All the tracks are okay. It does look a little bit unlined and up tipsy topsy, but once it's all glued into place, it will be fine. Because as I'll now show you, the front shield will have to come off. The front shield of the SIG will have to come off as well, and the actual SIG comes off, and the actual bow itself, and those will now be all the items that will get painted up, all as separate components. And then once all finished, that will all be painted. Once all painted up, it will all be put back together. There's a few little extras to go on, like a tow cable, but really that's pretty well much it. So thanks very much for following along. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and I'll join you in part 2 of this video, where we'll have a look at all the different painting and weathering processes. We'll look at hairspray technique, chipping. We'll look at oil paint rendering, use of pigments on tracks, and lots of other ideas on how to weather your vehicle.